This story is from Uipo Koibu Naga tribe. In the dawn of the memory, when men and beasts could speak to one another, there lived a young boy of the Hongsha Clan. He was an orphan under the guardianship of a cruel stepmother, but he was gentle-hearted and hard-working. Though he was humble and kind, his stepmother was partial and cunning. She had a son of her own too, who was still young and immature. Whenever it was time to collect firewood, timber, or work in the fields, she would pretend to make both boys work equally. But in reality, she gave the harshest and most dangerous tasks to her stepson. Furthermore, she'd stuff her son's refreshment with generous portions of meat hidden under a thin layer of vegetables. For her stepson, however, she'd stuff boiled vegetables and cover it up with a thin spread of meat. But the young Hongsha lad never complained. Even worse, during the time of zum cultivation, when food was scarce, the stepmother would prepare hot steamed rice for her son. But for her stepson, she'd pack rice husks disguised under a thin spread of steamed rice on the top. Despite all this, the boy endured silently, never uttering a sound against his stepmother. As months and years went by without proper meal and relentless labor, his body became weak and his spirit frailed. Finally, he decided he could no longer endure the mistreatment and confided in his maternal cousin his wish to be free of his suffering. He told his cousin that he would become a bird and fly away, and he asked his cousin for help. The cousin agreed, and together they began preparing for turning the lad into a bird. They collected timber from the sumac tree, which had white hardwood, and fashioned it neatly in the shape of giant white feathers. After they completed crafting the beak, wings and tails, the lad flew up high in the sky and called to his cousin whether he looked good. His cousin called out to him to come down, as something still seemed quite unfinished. He returned, and they added colors to his feathers. They painted his beak a rich golden hue using turmeric and decorated his body and tail feathers with charcoal, leaving a bold white stripe through the center. Once completed, he took to the sky again. He called to his cousin whether he looked good, and his cousin tearfully answered that he looked as grand as the man dressed up for the Laarung K dance, the headhunt dance. The young lad flew up high in the sky with his wings making a low roaring sound. Gwang! Gwang! Grateful and free, the lad looked down at his cousin, thanking him for helping him and promising to send down his finest feather to his cousin for the Laarung K dance. They bid farewell, and a word was spoken and a song was sung, and the boy, the great Hornbill, disappeared into the heavens. Years went by, and the boy's stepmother eventually forgot about him, feeling relieved by his absence. Finally, the time for the Laarung K dance came, and all the Uipo tribesmen were gathered in the Donmunhei, the village ground, grandly dressed with the Koinganlu shawl and tapai, a white dhoti with black embroidery. As the men were dancing, being admired by the whole village, the sky was suddenly filled with a low, thunderous sound. Gwang! Gwang! The villagers looked up to see the great hornbill circling above them. The great hornbill plucked a magnificent feather from his tail and dropped it gently towards the dancers. It landed perfectly on the hairknot of his cousin, and everyone saw how good and majestic he looked. Seeing this and overcome with jealousy, the stepmother called out, asking for a feather for her own son as well. Hearing her voice, the hornbill responded, instructing her to raise her hands. But instead of a feather, he dropped hornbill droppings into her palm. Still thinking it might be a blessing, she licked it, only to be struck by an unbearable, itchy, allergic reaction. This was fatal because hornbills consumed the fruits of a banyan tree that was poisonous, and unfortunately the stepmother died on the spot. From that day on, the great Hornbill is honored as a son and a brother of the Hongsha Clan, never to be hunted or harmed by the Uipo tribe. His image, the Hornbill, became the Hongsha Clan's totem, a symbol of freedom and justice. And the elders continue to remind us that everyone, no matter how well one might try to hide his evil deeds, they would one day be revealed for all to see, and one will die of shame for his wicked deeds. So lives the tale of the young Hongsha lad who became the great Hornbill.